recording. So two of you did the homework and you did not have enough time.
This week I will do last 2 weeks homework for you, and I will send it for you.
Okay. So
for the first 2 days I will be a bit busy because I will just write down some application letters for the university, so that's fine. So
okay.
So it's like 8 different universities.
Okay. So the homework was that in the first part you have an array of numbers from 1 to 1000, and we are interested in all the numbers in the array which are divisible by 3, then divisible by 10, and then by 21. So first you need to, I think you just did this part, right? You check divisibility by these 3 numbers in your homework. Yeah. So I'm going to create a function which will give me an array. Create numbers array, and it will have a starting number and an end. So for loop let I number equals start, number less than equals end, number plus plus. So if we create a function like this, then we can have maybe just call it numbers. Create array from 1 to 100. So it should give us numbers from 1 to 100, right? Console.log. So we get an array which is from 1 till 100. So you can use this to create a different array from 1 to 30, 1 to 1000, whatever you want. And then it asks you to create a function which will be a factory. So this function will return another function which will tell you if number is divided by some other number or not. So if I want to check if a number x is divisible by n or not, then what can I do? I need to check. So if I have a number x, let us say const x equals 100, right? And const n equals 5, and I want to check if x is divisible by n or not, then what would be the check? So it would be x equals 0, right? Yeah. So, and if you have to define a function that it will give me true or false for any value of x, then you can create a function like this. F given a value x, it will do this. So if I do f of 27, it will check if 27 is divisible by 5 or not, and it will tell me. So it will give me true or false. So many security things. So I have a function f, it's a function, and if I say f For 100 it will say true because 100 is divisible by 5, and if I say f of 21 it will say false, 121. So if you want to create a function which will check divisibility by n, then this would be the code. Okay, and if you want to have a old style function, then it would be like given a number x, return. Both of them are doing same thing. Okay, so I can assign this to a constant and return this thing, const checker, or I can return it directly. Or I can just say const equals given a number n, return a function that would be so. If you write code like this then it will work, but it's not very developer friendly. Like a person has to look here and like think for some time what is this code doing. So sometimes arrow functions are very useful, but if you write something like this, then it will take a person time to understand what are you trying to do. So we'll go with this code. Okay, so now we have this factory thing. It returns a function. So, and I have numbers array, so I can do numbers dot filter and check all the numbers which are divisible by 3. So this will return me a function. What does that function do? That function will return true or false depending on if that element is divisible by 3 or not. So this code is like const divisible by 3. I'm very bad with names anyway. So this is like this. It's a function, or you can think of like if I had to do it manually, I would say then it would check if an element is divisible by 3 or not. Okay, and this is also the same thing, but it's returned by a factory. So instead of changing it manually, this whole code, I can just call this function with a different value and I will have a checker for that.
I have wrote
Hmm?
and const cracker checker.
So it would be written. Okay, so let's do a console log and see if it works or not. So it should give me which numbers. What will we get from this?
Those numbers.
So yeah, so it will return us like it will start from 1 to 100. So 1 is not divisible by 3, so we will not get 1, we will not get 2, but we will get 3, we will get 6. So it should be 3, 6, 9. So it returns as 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Okay, and if we put it directly, then also we get the same thing. So if I put 30 here, how many numbers will I get?
3.
Which ones?
30, 60.
Yeah, 30, 60, 90. So it's an array till 100. So you understand everything till now, right? Now the what it asks you to print is that if you have a numbers array from 1 to 1000, then for each number from 1 to 30, tell me the number of elements which are divisible by that number in the original array. So if I have x equals 1, then from all the numbers from 1 to 1000 are divisible by x, right? So you have to output 1000, and if x is equals x equals 2, then just 500 numbers would be divisible by 2. Okay, and if x is 3, just 333 numbers would be divisible. So I'm going to create an array of it's a very stupid name. I'm not able to come up with better names. So let's say we have another array from 1 to 30. Okay, so the final output is going to be an array of 30 elements. First element would be 1000, second element would be 500, third element would be 333. It means that if I want to get a new array of same length as dividers, then I need to use map on dividers, right? Because you want to get a new array, and new array would be of the same length, and each element in the new array would correspond to something related to the first element in the first array. So for 1 I want you to print 1000, for 2 I want you to return 500, and like that. So console.log, let us say this is our result, and should be something, and we will print the result. So dividers dot map for each divider, which is d or x. For each x, you want to filter the numbers which are divisible by x, right? Okay, so this thing is going to be an array. So let's write a more. So const filtered numbers. Okay. Yeah, I will return. So for if x is 1, I'm going to get 1 to 1000 all the numbers. If x is 2, I'm going to get 2, 4, 6, 8, right? And it just asks me to print the count, so I can just return the length of this array. Make sense? No? So do you think it will work or no? It should work. So it returns us 1000, 500, 333, 250, and then 33 numbers are divisible by 30. So you can just change this and it will still work. Okay. Questions? Do you understand the mistake you are making? What? So the problem itself, the problem statement is not very clear. That what exactly you need to do. So I wrote something and shared on the Slack channel Then someone asked me, like you asked me, then I wrote the same thing again, that what you need to do.
Actually, it was difficult to identify how to map over the function.
So here you are using map, filter, and length. So you need to first identify that on which array are you going to map. And then once you are mapping on that array, then for each element, what do you want to do?
We want to divide, check the it is divisible by the.
Hmm. So if you look at, like I am recording the video, you can look at it again. But first I started with this, just this much code. Then I created a numbers array. I just printed that. So I was checking if my this code is working or not. Then I added something else. Then I tested that if it works or not. And then I wrote this much. So you have to first make sure that you are writing on top of correct code. And then, so I think you tried it using a for loop in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to figure out how to use map and filters, but I cannot solve it. So finally I use for loop.
Yeah. So it takes time to understand how to use map and filter and reduce. So these are used a lot in functional programming, but it's fine if you don't understand it right away. But if when you go and learn React or something like that, then they would be using map and filter and doing more complex things. So this assignment is very easy in the terms that you are just dealing with numbers and divisibility. But you may be doing something more complex in the inside the map and filters. So it's important to understand the concept, and if you like get it that how it works, you may not be able to think right away that when to use what should be the exact code which I need to write, but that you can learn in like next 1 month if you keep practicing. If you try to use map and filter instead of for loop, if you don't switch from for loops, then you will not learn. If you don't switch to promises from callbacks, then you will not practice and you will not learn. Okay, so this is the part one of the assignment.
I use the filter in the divisible section. Is that the
So what I think I saw that mistake, he also made the same mistake, that inside the factory instead of returning a function, you are returning a new array, right? But that's not how you were supposed to.
today I sent you the code.
Yeah, I did not see. You sent it at 11 or something, right? I was in the train. So we will do the next part now. This is part one.
You see this on Slack. So
I will post it to GitHub and share the link. And then I'm going to add some more code. So, part2.js. So in the part 2, you have to work with the films again. Okay, so we are going to use promises to fetch data from GitHub, this JSON file. So const URL equals something. If you have to write a function which uses promise, to fetch data from Ajax, then what should be the code? Get Ajax, get JSON, fetch JSON data. You need an URL.
Yeah.
Anything else? And what will you return?
Return promise, a constant promise.
Return a new promise. And what? How does this promise work? It takes.
Once resolve
So if I just do this, and let's call it error console.log error. So so what will you see on the console?
usually the error
Why?
because if it's not resolving anything.
But not resolving is not an error. This promise will never get resolved and it will never get rejected because you are not resolving it and not rejecting it. You can try this. Syntax error. So it will not get resolved or rejected. But if I do reject, then so then this code executes. I will not give you any data. But we actually need to fetch data from. So we create a new XML HTTP request object. And what do we need to do? Xhr dot open this URL and
There is a get method in our
get URL. This is the syntax. What is the syntax? Xhr dot send. Will it work now? Why?
it will
So we actually need to
add the
xhr dot load add event listener load, and then it will give you some response. You want to do const JSON data equals xhr dot response text, right? Is it correct? Response text, or is it something else?
It's correct.
Hmm?
It's correct.
So okay, it works. So we have something. So this is how we implement a promise which will fetch data from any URL using get. So any questions in this? You are not in the class that day. Do you have questions?
No, it's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
It's okay as in you understand it, or it's okay?
It's just a little bit I understand, so
Okay.
I'll keep watching the video.
So we have we know that this is a list of movies like IMDb, a part of the dump of IMDb. So what are we going to get? We are going to get movies, all movies. And then
we need to be provided.
so what is the first part? It says that give each movie a tag. So all movies dot map given a movie object, return movie, and then movie dot tag equals something excellent, very good, or good. So if movie dot rating equals 8.5, then do something. Else if do something else, do something else. 8.5, 8 or less. So then it's excellent, movie dot tag equals excellent. Then you have very good, and finally rest of the movies are not that great, very high standards. If it's less than 8, then it's not a good movie. So what am I doing here? So I'm checking if the rating is greater than 8.5, greater than or equal to 8.5, then it's excellent. If it's not greater than 8.5 but still greater than 8, it's very good, or otherwise it's just good. And then I'm updating the movie object and then returning the movie object. So const tagged movies.
In the cell bar, we will not bound less than 8.5.
So yes, what do you think? What will happen?
Otherwise, it will take all the movies.
No. So the code will run from here. First it will check this condition, then only it will check this condition, and then in the end. So if a movie has more rating than 8.5, it will be already matched here, so you don't need to worry about. So all of them are like exclusive. Only one of these will run. It will not happen that if a rating is 9, then this will also run, and this will also run, and this will also run. So you are testing, like you are saying that is it more than 8.5? If that's true, then do something. If that's not true, is it more than 8? So if it's more than 8.5, you have already done something. So this line will not get executed, and neither will this.
Fine.
In case of switch and case, if it matches, then you have to break out of switch case. So that works differently. But if you're using if else,
it will automatically handle in the proportion.
Yeah. So if you write this, then it's different. Then you have two different if blocks. But if I'm using if and else if, then they are linked. Okay, so do you think it will work? So give each movie something. It's this part, and then it should work hopefully. So yes, so each object has a tag now. Good, good. Something with a high rating, no? 8.43 idiots. Very good. Hmm. So this was the first part. So if it says that you have to tag each movie, it means that you have to add a new attribute to each object. Okay, but there is this problem. I am doing something with all movies. I am returning a new array. But if you go and look at the all movies array, if you do console log all movies, you will see that even those elements have a tag property. So if I just print this, even they have a tag. And that happens because you are returning a new array, but you are modifying the same object. So I'm not creating a new object here. Okay, I'm modifying the old object. If I had to fix that code, I could say const. I could say this would be old movie object, and this would be movie equals. You don't need to worry about the syntax right now. We will be taught about it. But here I'm going to create a new object and I'm going to assign all the properties of old movie to this new object, and then I'm going to work on that new object. It means that I'm not going to touch this old movie. I mean the objects in the original array. So if you run this code now, the old movies array does not have a property tag, but these new ones have. Okay, so this is a better code because if you're using map or filter, in some cases you may not want some side effect. That if you're applying something, then you should apply it on a copy of the data. If you modify the same data, it will be changed for someone else also. Okay, so I'll remove this, but you should be aware that we are still referring to the same object. So we are done with the part 1. What is the part 2? Render all the movies as list, similar to how you are representing GitHub array. GitHub repos. Now I need to write some HTML. Okay, so what should we do? I want to use a table now. So, and I am going to put how many properties do we have? We have title,
We have DD also.
year, rating, yes, we have tag, and we have votes also, and we have running time also. Votes and tag. I will not do anything with the running time. Okay, and I'm going to increment the body, and then we'll give it I'll give it an ID. Okay, I'm cheating by putting it here, but it's not a very good implementation. Anyway, I will do this ID equals movies list. So how will you do CSS selection if you want to get this? It would be, and then you would use arrow, right? So if I want to get const movies table element t body element something, then document dot query selector movies list t body, right? No, you have not seen a CSS selector like this.
No. Like,
Is it wrong? Will it be like this?
If we
It should be like this. So it means that find me an element with this ID and give me the next t body element. Let us see if it works or not. In the worst case, we will be wrong. It works. So now let's do something. Let's say for const movie of tag movies const tr equals document dot create element tr dot inner HTML. I'm going to use template literal to write HTML here. So it will have a td with movie dot title, and then it will have something else also. So you can, if you use this syntax backtick with, you can, it's how many td do we need? Movie dot title, movie dot year rating votes tag, year rating votes tag. So if you use backtick and then use dollar and curly braces, you can put JavaScript object in between, and it will give you a string representation of that thing. So it's a new syntax in JavaScript ES6. Okay, and it's much better than, so other way would be that I do this plus movie dot title and plus plus plus, but that is very ugly, and this looks very easy to change, right? It looks like HTML, and you can just put few things in between and you will have a new string, and that string is HTML string, and you can just say that inner HTML is like this. Okay, other way would be that I go in a for loop and create two td for each thing, but I think this is well understood if you know the syntax. What else do I need to do? I need to append child t body dot append child tr something. Hopefully it will work. It looks ugly, but it works. You really have lot of things. Title, year, rating, votes, tag. This looks very ugly anyway. So we have all the movies here, right? And then what is the next task? Render all the movies in a list. So this is the part 2. Once you have that, then add an input field and a button to perform search. So input, type text, name something, ID, search text, and then a button, ID, search button, search input. So what do I need to do here? Search input equals document dot query selector search input.
Because he
I have had a problem about this. Now he changed a little bit.
get the input value and use it, and now he learned.
Okay.
Now it comes.
Const search button equals something else. So if you have a reference to these two, then what would be the next step?
Get the value of
Hmm?
get the input value.
Then I want to add a event listener. I'm not using a form, so it's not submit. And then a callback function. So every time you click, it will go and find the value of whatever you have typed, and then it will log to the console. So some reason I don't see a button because I have not put anything inside it. We're searching for something. So it works. This much is working. Now what it asks you to do is that use dot filter method on arrays to filter on the title. Okay. So my this file is getting very like big. I'm doing lot of things. So I will move some code outside. First thing I will move is this. So I get tag movies. Then I'm going to create a function which will be render movies. Okay, so render movies movies, and I want to reset its inner HTML to empty string before rendering the new. Okay, and you can also call it movies. So this is the local variable. Okay, so and then I have to implement a filter. Let's do it here for now. Const filtered movies would be tag movies dot filter for a movie X dot title dot includes a search text. If that's true, then return that film, otherwise not. And the search text is this thing, whatever user has typed. Okay, so, and once I have filtered movies, I'm just going to render them. It kind of works. No? Yes. It looks ugly, but it works. So my JavaScript code is good, but my HTML looks very ugly. Anyway, so the next part is that you have to add 4 radio buttons, and for each tag and plus all tag, and filter the movies based on the tag selected. Okay, so it means first I need to find out how radio buttons work. Radio HTML. Input type radio.
I think it's checked.
Checkbox.
No, checked.
Okay.
Radio button checked. When it's checked,
Yeah.
so it's like a click.
Yeah. I'm understanding what you are trying to say. I'm thinking how to write this code. So let us say I have a new div which has input with radio. So first I'm going to have one for all type radio, ID nothing, name would be all, it would be selected tag, and then value would be what? All. So all, excellent, very good, 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 very good, excellent, and then very good. चल जाओ भाई. It works. I can select just one of those, and then I can also give a default value, right? I can say a value of selected, right? Checked. So by default, if I want to get the value of which one is selected, how do I do that?
First, shouldn't the inputs be in the form, like form tag, and then inputs inside the form tag? Then maybe it works.
So one way it can be that you query all of these and try to find out which one is checked and get the value of that. But that you don't need to put that much effort. If you just use form, then form will give you data that for selected tag what is the current value. Okay, so I will just use form, and then this button would be of type submit. Okay, and this form would be search form, and I will remove ID from here, and I will remove this ID also, and then I'm going to have a form here, search form, and I will add an event listener for form.submit, and I will prevent the default event. So form has a default behavior that if you press submit, it will try to reload the page by submitting the data. I don't want that behavior. So if you are listening for some event and you want to prevent that event from happening, like prevent the default behavior, then you can use event.prevent default. Okay, and then hopefully this will work. Console.log form. So it works. If I click submit, then I get something, and if I type something and press enter, then also it works, because when you press enter, then by default the browser thinks that you want to submit the form, so you will get submit event, and if the user clicks on the submit button, then also you will get the submit event. So form, if you use a form, then some of the work is done by browser for you, so your code would be very simple. The next task is getting the data from the form. Okay, so I don't remember, so I will just search mdn javascript get form data. How does it work? So there is something called form data, and you create it from a form element, Okay, so JavaScript has a form data class, and if you just do this, then hopefully it will have form data. So it's a new kind of object, and it has methods like get, all, entries. So selected tag is equal to all, and if I say I want to get form data dot get selected tag, then it should give me the current value of the selected tag. Okay, and if I do, so we have to give a name to this also, and the name can be search text. So it will give you the current text. If you don't type anything, it's nothing. Okay, so this is a much cleaner way if you have a form with complicated input requirement. So let's say that we have a form data, then we have form text, search text, then we have selected tag. And let us say we are just try to make sure that the search text is still working, the search is still working, okay, without implementing the filtering by tag. So if I type God, it should show me, it does not show me anything. Why?
I'm looking for an exact match. Maybe it starts with a capital G.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All the movies with title gods. Anyway, so we can do that. So search is working. Now we need to implement filtering by tag. That if I say just show me excellent, then it should return excellent. So if you remember, the tags we have assigned, they have value excellent, very good, good, and it has space. But what I have typed here, it's different. So one fix is that you go and fix the value for that. Make sure that both of them are same. Okay. So if you work with a database driven application, you don't have to type these things manually, and you will be using some ID or something which is stored in the database. So you don't need to type this manually. And for all, I will have all. Okay. So then if where is the code? Okay, so filtered movies is this, and then I want to make this to lowercase.
Your movie names
It's not to local.
capitalized.
So if I just convert the search text to lowercase and I search it, like I convert the title to lowercase before matching, then it will be case insensitive search. Okay, so if I am searching for Godfather, I can type small letters like lowercase and it will still work for me. So let's see if that is working. So if I type, it still works. But we have not implemented this, that it's not filtering by radio input. So to do that, let's first print this value. What are we getting? So we're searching for God, and then so we have correct values, right? One thing is that if selected tag is not equal to all, then you have to filter by tag also, right? And if it says all, then you don't need to filter by tag. Then I'll say let, but I'm going to change this variable again. Three times हो जाता है.
You wrote x dot tag 2 times. X dot tag.
Returns.
I have to do X. So yeah, it will not match anything because God. So if I say excellent, it will just show me these films, and if I say very good, it will show you this, and if I say good, it will show remaining. If I say all, it will show me everything. Okay. So we are not showing number of results anywhere. If you have to do that, you can say. So there is one bug. That bug is that this thing is visible by default, like title, year, something. So it should not be visible. So to do that, you can do one thing: style, display none. But then, even if you initialize everything, it will not show. So if you have some search results, you want to make the display back to not none. How do you do that?
When you click a subject button, so display the display input.
So
The length of the search results.
yeah. So
Greater than
first we need to get the table. And then if so, it would be like table dot style dot display
Block.
display, right?
Display block.
No.
Yeah, this is block. Block it shows like.
So if movies dot length greater than 0, then it would be
you're using a ternary operator.
yeah. So I have to use
There's
question mark.
question.
And then otherwise none. So if the search result has more than 0 films, then the table should appear. Otherwise, we don't need to show the table. Do you think it will work?
Yes.
And if I type anything random, it will not appear. it appears. So we have a working search, and if you want to show the number of films, number of search results, then you can just put something here. I don't know. And just say search count. This will also be invisible by default. And then when you search, you will say search count. So we want to show this. We don't want to show this thing when before user has searched anything. So, but if user types and this function is getting called, then this thing should get rendered. So we want it to appear if we have 0 elements or whatever. So p dot inner HTML equals movies dot length barabar 0, not equal, not barabar, it's equal. Okay, if it equals to 0, then you say no movies found. Otherwise you say movies dot length movies found. Two movies found. No movies found. Now there is a bug. If I search for this exact film, it says 1 movie is found, but it should say 1 movie found. Okay, so there is a grammatical mistake. There are ways to do it, that when to put s, when to not put s, like when do you make this noun plural and when do you keep this singular. So what I wanted to show you, that using map, reduce, filter and everything, and there was something new which you learned and I also learned, that we can use form data, and it's a very nice way to. And if you have more than one input, then it makes sense to use form and use the submit event of the form, because when you press enter, then the submit event gets triggered. But if you're using an input and a button, it will not get triggered unless you go and click on that button. Okay, so I think that's it. It looks very bad, but if I have to use some CSS, then I think it will be.
Escape break.
Yeah. So I will just push this code, and then we will continue with. I will continue with promises and closures. And if you want to ask questions about anything, because this is the last JavaScript class, from next week you will be learning Node.js. So it's a good idea to make sure that you know everything